to Dan Roth live. I've got a fun one for you today. I was telling him before we came on that this one's been different because, first of all, it's a long time in the making. But because we're friends first and have a very unique relationship, the promos I've been doing have been purely entertaining for me to create. And quite frankly, while I'm putting them out there, I'm pretty sure I'm just doing them for me and seeing how they fall. Uh, Now, I met John, like many other people, through seeing his posts on LinkedIn. We developed a friendship through his expertise on Clubhouse. And jokes aside, this is a man who truly embodies the spirit of an entrepreneur. He truly embodies someone that's so selfless, kind, and caring with his time. And I think that's why we get along so well because we see the world in a very similar way and also have similar backgrounds. The main difference is he's across the pond. I'm stuck in California, not by choice, by marriage. Anyway, without further ado, the Mac Daddy of LinkedIn, John Espirian.
Wow,
Hey,
what a
John.
great intro. Thank you so much for having me, Dan. We finally got there to have this in-person kind of
Yes.
chat. Yeah.
I'm so excited for not just, first of all, I'm excited for me because I get to talk with my friend for an hour. Um, but I'm excited for people out there because when you and I first got to know each other, I found you really when I was just getting started. So you
Mhm.
immediately came in as an expert. Yes, Ashley, I am stuck in California. I'm a New Jerseyan. Um, Very
What a
much stuck.
terrible place to be stuck, eh? Terrible place.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, if you look at the prices, I mean, it's like center London all over
Mhm.
again. I'm pretty sure the Queen can't afford it out here. Uh, may, uh, Maybe after she killed Diana. Um,
And
oh
we get
God,
taken off the air.
yeah, right. So, first starting out, I was watching you, not in a creepy way. Once again, Queen reference. Um, and you did all this work, quite frankly, for free, getting the data, uh, really figuring out how LinkedIn worked. You know, I have trouble because I'm trying, I want to have like a general conversation, but at the same time, I'm so curious about where you got started because you're a writer. And then, you know, were you one of the originators on LinkedIn, 15 years ago?
No, I joined in 2008, but that was only to shut my boss up. I mean, I didn't really want to join at the time, so I didn't do anything with it for years. But I became a freelance writer a year after I joined, and then I wasn't getting any leads from social media some years later. And I thought, well, if I'm trying to target B2B, let me just dive deep on LinkedIn because that's where B2B people hang out, right?
Yeah.
Um, but because I used to be a software tester, I kind of like I can't see a button or a menu without clicking on it and going, what does this do? What does that do? How does this work? Why doesn't that do this? And then I ended up starting to document this stuff, saying, oh, look, this is broken, or this is stupid, or look, I found a way around this. And in the end, people started coming to me saying, you seem to know how this works. How does so and so work? And in the long run, being a software tester, being a computer science guy, being a data analytics guy, being a mathematician, I kind of like the numbers around it, and I started gathering those things. And I just thought, well, look, I'm going to share what I learn. Abundance mentality, right? I don't want to try and keep all these secrets to myself. If I don't tell people, other people will. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years, and it's worked.
Well, I mean, I would say so because, for those that are just new to John, which I have a hard time believing there's anybody still out there, and if so, shame on you. Um, you know,
Fully agree.
Not only have you cultivated an immense following, and you're really seen. I mean, let me be blunt. In my eyes, it's you and Kevin D. Turner as the two main experts of LinkedIn, kind of period end of story. Uh, I don't have any qualms about saying that, although I do have a couple people that might be knocking on my door later saying, WTF. Uh, but you were able to cultivate a community, a following, and ultimately a business.
Hmm.
Now, I'm going to try to add value here because I feel like I have to. It's what people expect of me. So, at what point did you say, okay, I'm doing this for the love of it, to doing this and well, maybe there's something here that I could maximize so that I could be independent in my
Yeah.
entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, that kind of happened about a year ago where I was thinking, okay, I'm getting copywriting leads from my LinkedIn presence, but copywriting isn't really doing it for me. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. And I've got this email list that is kind of going quite well, but it's always me speaking to everyone. No one's speaking back to me through an email list. So I thought, why don't I try and create a group? So I did that last year in September and it blew up. I mean, by my standards, it blew
Yeah.
up. I got hundreds of members, and people have got a lot of questions when you run a group, and you get loads of DMs. And I thought, well, I can't sustain this. I'm doing all of this for free. I need to either close this down, which I didn't want to do, or I need to find a way of charging for it so that I can, give my knowledge and give my time and know that I'm not going to be awake 14 hours a day doing stuff for free. And that's what led to my paid community. So it wasn't a long-term plan, but I found a way to turn helpfulness into something that approaches profit rather than just giving away absolutely everything. But I don't think I would have been able to do that 3 years ago. Like I wouldn't have built up enough social equity, trust in the bank for people to trust me enough to pay me. So it has worked out. It was quite organic. It was never really a long-term plan, but now we're in a place where people who really want access to me can pay to be in my community, and I still put out as much helpful content as I have time for everyone else in the LinkedIn community.
So, Ashley brings up an interesting point. And not saying what you've done is incredible, but your overnight success took many years to perfect and a lot of consistently showing up and being relentless.
Yeah,
So I think on behalf of a lot of people, thank you for what you do.
nice. Thank
But
you.
here, there were a couple comments that you made that led to this question, and that is begin to be profitable. So my query is, are you still doing the copy editing, or is there a point where you're able to take that full leap?
Yeah, I've taken that leap now. Now that I've
Okay.
got 200 members of my community, it becomes a viable concern for me to really keep this thing going. It's not something I could easily drop now.
Yeah.
And like I said, the copywriting was never stirring my soul. So I'm just taking a back seat from that now. And I'm going to focus on just LinkedIn consultancy and supporting this Espresso Plus community. That's it. I'm happy to do that for the rest of my career if I can.
So you say that, but I also know that your goal long term, and congratulations on the 200.
Thank
I
you.
wonder who the 200th member was.
I
Uh,
wonder who that might have been, eh?
yeah. All right. But you've expressed to me that you want to cap at 300,
No, I will.
which,
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you get down that number? Because basically, what you're saying by noting that is that that's a level that you're comfortable with. And at that point, and this is something really important for people to understand, that's the point where you feel you're capped at how much effort you could give on an individual basis, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. My free group grew to 650 members, right? That is not sustainable for a single person to be doing that for free. Just no way. I
Yeah.
knew that when I started my paid community, I would be giving more effort per member. And so there's no way that I could get to 650. And it felt like 300 was a good number to aim for. Could I grow the community bigger than that? Could I earn more than that? Probably. Do I want to do more effort and earn more? No. All sorts of stats saying that the more you earn beyond £50,000 in the UK, I don't know what that is, $70,000,
Yeah.
the more miserable you become. I'm not interested in being a millionaire. Just want to be happy with my life, serving good people. So no, I won't earn as much as some other people. on LinkedIn and elsewhere. I don't care. I just want to do what makes me happy and it gets me out of bed. And 300 members would achieve all of my financial goals. So I'm more than happy with that as a goal, and I don't need any more.
So I love that for a variety of reasons. One of the things I talk about within my group, which we'll touch on in a minute,
Mhm.
is finding a position that makes you happy. And I love that you're setting the example that money doesn't necessarily buy happiness. Now, you have to strategically know how much it's going to cost to
Yeah,
survive
yeah,
and to be comfortable, but having an idyllic end goal that will make you happy, it's just a great precedent to set. And I truly applaud you for doing that because for me it's an interesting predicament having the kids, having the wife, um because I'm looking at it like, oh God, it's going to cost me millions of dollars to be in a position to take care of all this.
yeah.
I wish that, quite frankly, I wish that I could be in a position to do that. So I'm very envious of you, but I also love. So the main difference between our groups is, and we talked about this just briefly, is the size of it.
Mm,
You have cultivated a group that has individual attention with very specific curated members. You're looking to make sure everybody molds together.
yeah, definitely.
So it's very much a familial, tight knit community, whereas
Hmm.
I have 6,100.
Hmm. Yeah, there's no way you
And
can keep close relationships with that many people.
no, and I like to think I'm widely considered as having one of the fastest, most active groups,
Hmm.
but there was, there was differences with how we brought this up. And at this point, I'm going to make it more of a back and forth because I know you have questions about how I've built this up. And for those that are watching, this is going forward. This is very much just going to be a conversation between friends. So you're going to kind of get an inside seat on, well, uh, acceptable eavesdropping is what we'll call it. Acceptable eavesdropping. So, you set forth because you built this first as a non-paid thing, but then you saw a direct dynamic. Um, for me, I didn't necessarily make the choice to create the group. So I don't know if we've spoken about this, but what happened was there was a certain point in time where my Tuesday post got to 70, 80,000
Hmm.
views per week. And there were something like 500 comments. And I would have people being like, if I don't get in the first hour, then my stuff is going to be ignored because it's too hard to keep up. And when they said that, it triggered me. How do I manage this where I take the people that have been part of this community and bring them over somewhere so that it eases up the posts and people are more manageable. So I created the group. The problem was my expectation for it to decrease on the post was my hypothesis was incorrect.
Okay.
And so I wound up gaining more viewership and more people that were coming in.
Hmm.
At that point, what I realized is instead of creating this tight knit community, and I still wanted to have that familial feel, I'm going to create something where people have an opportunity to get the resources that they need. I'm not the only expert. I'm going to bring in coaches, resume writers, influencers, so to speak, people that do interview prep, people that are LinkedIn experts in one environment. But I'm going to structure it so that it's free of bias. There's no solicitation, but we're going to make sure it's 100% free.
Hmm.
I'm going to add some managers to it, but ultimately I wanted it to be an autonomous environment where it wouldn't necessarily need the oversight. And speaking bluntly, there are things that have happened that I'm really happy about, and I love the community, but I also don't necessarily feel like people are taking advantage of it the way that I would hope. I think there's a lot of opportunity for coaches, for example, but um, it's the problem with LinkedIn, and I know you know this, is that there's a lot of people that will show up and click on a button. So I think part of it is that people still click to come in the group, and then you have basically the portion that are paying attention. So I would say it's probably 30% are really focused on continually watching versus 70% are like your casual LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So, I'll leave it there and hopefully that explains a little bit more because I know you were asking.
How do you deal with spam in the group? Because then there must be spam in a group with 6,000 people, someone trying to take a chance and promote themselves.
I delete it right away. And I make sure that people
You
know.
delete it or your community managers delete it? Presumably, you can't be there all the time, right?
The short answer is I don't know. Um, Tegan Bartos is effectively my number two,
Mhm.
but I can't see when people are deleting things. So
Okay.
more often than not, what I try to do is I try to be as accessible as possible, but within
Yeah.
reason. And I
Yeah.
tell people, if you have somebody that's soliciting in the group, let me know, and I will, without question, they will instantly be blocked and removed.
Mhm.
I don't have a high tolerance for it, but
Yeah.
also by not having a high tolerance for it, it decreases the opportunity for there to be an influx of fluff. Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'll give them another chance. I'll have a mediation." No, that's not going to happen because that takes a heck of a lot of time.
Sure.
So instead, it's just. But now, I do allow solicitation. But what people have to understand, I think this part of it is, this is my name attached to it, just
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
Espresso Plus has your name attached to it. So anything, any person that wants to offer paid services, I am going to vet or I am going to assign to one of my community managers to vet. And I have turned people down that wanted to solicit in the group because I didn't think it was valid enough, or I didn't think that they were going to be getting the expertise that they should be. At the same time, the vetting process is not an overly difficult one. And once I basically look and do my research, as long as it's an exclusive or reduced cost offering,
Mhm.
I have no problem with people putting it out there. And I think that's where there's a lot of missed opportunity with coaches, because for the last year and a half, every invite, whether it's Clubhouse, whether it's been LinkedIn Live, I've always tried to really make it so that the people that are interacting with me have an opportunity to increase their audience, to increase their productivity, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of missed opportunity, but also I'm just one guy. It'd be one thing for you to say, because you're a paid community, it would be one thing for you to say, okay, well, we can increase membership to, let's say, 350 people, but that last 50 is going to go towards hiring an assistant or otherwise that will then get monetized for it. Whereas for me, it's very, and I've had opportunities like I could easily monetize my community,
Mm.
but I don't think it's the right thing to do. So getting community managers to play more of a centralized role, to have more an effect on the overall, is a lot more difficult. And I'm very grateful that I have the people that I do,
Yeah.
but it's not like I could ask more of them because everybody has to earn a living.
Sure. Sure. I wonder what stops you charging $2 a month, some really nominal amount that actually probably anyone could afford, just to make sure that you haven't got complete time wasters. Have you ever thought about doing that?
I have, but here's my outlook on it. I have specifically focused to have an incredible amount of military, and I'm speaking globally, I'm not speaking just America. I have had a specific focus to bring in women and minorities and
Mhm.
curate an environment that is safe for them. And the
Yeah.
thing with it is as the father of girls, it's my mission and my duty in life to make the world a little bit better place by the time they get older. Now, how that relates to charging $2 a month is this. I do not believe that I can promote narrowing the gender and racial wealth gap and also charge women and minorities for a service. I don't believe in taking out of pockets.
Mhm.
So, and at $2 a month, like, plus, if I'm just being frank, there's also the back end. As a ADHD person, I'm not very good at that detail aspect.
Mhm.
So then I would have to hire someone. It's the same reason I don't hire a VA. God knows I need a VA, but I don't. A lot of people will hire VAs from outside the United States because it's reduced cost, and
Yep.
I don't believe in doing that. I
Yep.
believe if now I'm not saying I'm going to pay a VA from Singapore $15 an hour, which is
Mhm.
minimum wage in California, but I'm also not going to pay them $2 an hour. So there has to be a happy medium. And until I can afford to do
Yep.
that and feel good about it,
Yep.
I won't do it.
Okay, that's cool. I respect that. I mean, probably if I were in your position with that background, I might be thinking of doing something like a buy me a coffee page or a Cash App page and saying totally voluntary donation. If anything that you put into this fund will you be used to serve the community.
So I do
You-
that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Good.
I've had opportunities throughout the last year where companies have come to me to be a brand ambassador.
Hmm.
They've come to me for various reasons, or people have come to me that had large asks that they needed help with. And what I do is I always refer them to the nonprofits, Crescent Kids, which is the one I support, because my dear friend Funmi runs the organization and helps children with sickle cell. So for me, that's a better utilization of that. But also, John, just so you have a little bit of perspective, as I've gone along this journey, and you've seen me, there's from where I was last year at this time, it's crazy. I got into coaching back in last July due to demand, realized I didn't like it. So then I
Hmm.
thought, well, what buckets do I actually want to fill financially? And I
Yeah.
realized, okay, I love recruiting, so I want to get paid for recruiting. So that's what I do with Amazon. But I
Hmm.
also love professionally speaking.
Right.
So not only can I do that, but I don't feel bad charging large corporations. I
Mhm.
feel bad charging the individual.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I get that.
so I have those distinct buckets, and that makes me feel good. And I'm still like kind of working my way through. I have to get a couple things ready. Our friend Juanita is actually doing my
Nice.
website. So we are actually meeting Sunday night, my time, Monday morning, hers, to get everything finalized, and then I could really push in that direction.
Yep.
Which, speaking of which, if you ever did want to make a little bit of money, I know for a fact you could do paid speaking engagements on this kind of stuff and make bank. But I know it's not your priority.
Yeah, it's certainly not, but I'm not averse to doing speaking opportunities if they come along. It's not something I'm actively chasing, but I mean the reason I was asking the question is just to kind of establish that you've got there's enough of you left over because all of this sounds exhausting. I know from personal experience that running a group with 650 members in a free group was taking up pretty much all of my time. So I can just imagine the demands on your time, and I know that you don't always get the most sleep either. So you have to
No,
make sure that you're kind of it's the difference between what I say. It's the difference between being relentlessly helpful and just being a doormat for people. Because I used to be the
yeah.
latter, and that's not a good place to be.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you, it was a really big deal for me the day that I put an away message on LinkedIn. And like if you
Hmm.
look at my LinkedIn away message now, it shows here's my prioritization of getting back to people.
Hmm.
And that was a huge thing for me to do because I was setting boundaries for really the first time in my life.
Yeah.
It was a necessary evil. And I remember I used to think that away messages were completely ignorant. I would see them, and I'm going to call out some names, but I'm not saying this ignorant that they were being ignorant, like Cher Jones and Leah,
Hmm.
um, and they would have these. And when I first started, I was like, oh man, they're never going to respond. And then as things started, and you know how this goes, then it's like,
Mm.
oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Because you're tagged and stuff all the time, just like I
Mm.
am. So you get to a certain point, you're getting 3,000 pings in a day. It's like, leave me alone already. I appreciate that you appreciate me, but like, seriously,
Mm.
have a drink.
Yeah, I haven't actually used my away message recently, but I think it was probably Leah who I realized was using it intelligently, and that's one of the reasons I went on to LinkedIn Premium, because I didn't really feel as though I needed LinkedIn Premium, but I kind of
Yeah.
liked that feature, and I just used the away message to share tips. Like, did you know headline can be 220 characters? Just not, I'm not away. I'm just giving you a free tip, and I would always be responsive. So I think it is a pretty cool feature. I don't think negatively of people who use it.
Neither do I now, but I think when you're in the position, and I talk to a lot of job seekers, when you're in a position where you're really starting out and you're trying to build that ground, it could almost be seen as an inadvertent slight, uh,
Yeah.
which is really, I don't want to say it's a lack of social awareness, but when you get into those positions, you oftentimes can lose sight of what of the big picture, and I think that's what it comes down to. Uh, but I got to tell you, some of my favorite people are on your side of the pond. Nick Rayburn, in particular, I absolutely adore. He has some of the best interviews I've ever seen. Um, Leah, I just think she's such a role model. So
I'm meeting her finally in June.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
When she told me she was only 5'2", that was my big shocker for that day, because like you see Leah and she's this larger than life personality. And by the way, Leah, thank you for all you do for the neurodiverse community. Um, she won't watch this, but I've said it. So,
I'll
but
clip it up and send it to her.
yeah, so um, it- yeah, Leah just the amount of stuff she's had to go through on LinkedIn, nobody should have had to. I mean, you remember, like she she got blocked for having the emoji in her name, and then
That's
had
right.
to fight to get
Yeah.
it. I remember that day.
Yeah. It's mad.
Oh wow, it was like I'm smiling about it because I remember how fired up she is, and it
Mm.
was great. But yeah, Nick, I mean, you have Tony McClelland, who I know is a mutual friend. You have Ella. Uh, so many wonderful people. I'm pretty sure I could convince my wife to move to the UK faster than I can the East Coast. Uh, but
There's only a few places more expensive. Well, yeah, hey, if California's hard, come over here. We'll make it easy for you. Listen, before
oh
you
yeah, sure,
let me get this straight now. You know that I'm going to be limiting my membership to 300. I've said so much publicly, and I tend not to break promises. If I've said it, I'm going to do it.
yeah.
You're on 6,100. What's your ceiling? Because you can't make it 61,000.
I can. Um,
Really?
I can,
A
but it
free
wouldn't.
group running like that? I'd be amazed if you could.
I don't think it would be able to running like that. I think
Yeah.
at that point it would be style over substance,
Mm.
and I refuse to put my name on something like that.
Yeah.
The thing a
Okay.
lot of yeah, the thing a lot of people don't see, and this is that every Friday I jump on Zoom and I do office hours. So I answer
Mhm.
questions from all the people in my group that want to come on. I do it the same
Yeah.
time every week, except the third Thursday of the month when the ladies do it.
Mhm.
Anna Morgan, who just commented, my coach, she's one of the ones that jumps on.
Mhm.
So I love the personalization that I'm able to provide, but that was really the goal of the group. And it's not that I'm knocking anybody, but I thought I would have a lot more than 20 people showing up
Mhm.
uh, on any given week. But the people that I'm getting are coming back and coming back and coming back. And I've had people say, and I liken this to you because this is why I keep coming back to you, is you make me feel so much at home. you're providing great advice. If I didn't have this in the course of a given week, I don't know what I would do. And that's the sign of a true community. The
Mhm.
reason why I don't have an issue with 61,000 if it's done the right way is because if I have to look at this strategically. So if my focus is to help job seekers and then I'm looking at 4 or 5 different places. I'm looking at a bulk of job seekers. That's going to be like my central base. But then I need to have a certain amount of recruiters spreading out across all different types of organizations on a global level. Then I have to have coaches. Then I have to have resume writers, people that do interview prep. There's people like Rachel B. Lee and
Mhm.
Joshua B. Lee that work with branding. Same thing with
Yeah.
Tracy Borison. Uh, you have people like Brenda Meller and Sarah Johnson. Sarah sent me a voice note yesterday. Completely didn't expect it. She's one of the people I respect most in the world. And she sent me a message saying, "Hey Dan, you have this tremendous gift of boosting people up." I'm like, Sarah Johnson just said that. Holy shit. Um, so so I have to keep it structured in a way. And you asked me a question before. Part of it is my OCD.
Mhm.
Um, part of my ADHD, when I get those 3,000 notifications, it's very hard for me not to click on it every single time
Yeah.
because I'm automatically going through that. And that's a problem for me because I need to be able to shut that off. But no, if I were to, I think 50,000 is a nice round number. And
Wow.
if I could hit that, but set it up in a structured environment where I have more active community leaders,
Mm.
um, that take on different things, then that
Mm.
would be ideal. I don't want to have to be the center of this. And it's not that I don't mind doing it, it's that I don't believe anybody should be listening to only one opinion at all times.
No, I do take that on board, but the big issue I've had in a couple of paid communities that I've been in before, and I don't know whether the equation is different because they were paid communities, not free communities, but the celebrity, if you like, they weren't really celebrities, but the name that attracted me to the place wasn't really as accessible to me as I would have wanted. The reason I got through the door wasn't the thing that was able to keep me in there afterwards. You know, I didn't really have an interface with that person or people, and I never want to put that on anyone else in my community. That's why I'm keeping it small, because I know if you join, you will get access to me, and I'll be the figurehead. Doesn't mean to say that the community and the network effects that go on in there don't have value, and that there aren't going to be other opinions. But if you want access to me and that's why you're joining, that's what you'll get.
So you bring up an interesting point. So let me elaborate on what I say about hands off. If I have different leaders helping facilitate different things within the group, then I get to do what I love to do, which is jumping on those office hours. Because there was a point where I was
Mhm.
taking on so many one-on-one calls that had nothing to do with my work
Mhm.
that I said that I was just overrun. So what I
Yeah.
decided to do was create these office hours so I could say, okay, here you have access to me every single week,
Yeah.
but then I'm only going to do one-on-one calls through referrals because
No,
it
that's
allowed me,
fine.
yeah,
That's
it
absolutely
allowed me to set the boundaries.
yeah.
So it's not that I actually think that if I have more structure in place within these group managers, then it will allow me to have a lot more personal interaction because I won't have to worry about A, B,
Yeah.
C, D, and E component. And here's the thing. I have a lot of amazing community managers. Tracy Borison is one of my dearest friends in the world. She's a community manager. I'm pretty sure I made you one just for the sake of it. Uh, Michelle Olivier is one of my best friends. And uh, Tiara Swain, who is the two-time reigning LinkedIn DEI equity, yeah, diversity, equity, inclusion award winner, is a manager. But these people have full-time jobs.
Yeah. A lot
So
to expect.
yeah, so like, and sometimes too, like Tiara has two. She's working for LinkedIn,
Mhm.
plus she has her own business that's extremely successful.
Mhm.
So, I have the right people in place.
Yeah.
But you can't force feed it. Really quick before we continue, I
Mhm.
do want to. This is the second time I've been asked this today, and sometimes I forget. Like when you're part of the neurodiverse community, you sometimes will forget that other people don't know what it means. Neurodiverse simply means that my brain makeup doesn't think the same way the typical person does. So I have ADHD. I deal with anxiety and depression. So that makes me neurodiverse. Autism spectrum disorder, uh, Asperger syndrome. Um, there's a ton that are to it. At the end of the day, it's just labels. We are who we are. So, Thabby, feel free to message me if you have any other questions. I just wanted to quickly touch on that because I feel like it's an important thing to do.
Yeah, that's
S-
cool. Just on the access to you. I mean, if your plan is to keep doing the weekly, ask me anything calls, then I guess it makes sense that you could grow the community much larger than it is now, so long as they've got that easy interface
Yeah,
to you. In which case, that's all good. If you were in your ivory tower thinking, "I'm too important now, I can't do these calls, and I'll outsource everything to my community manager's cat," then it wouldn't be cool.
no, no, it wouldn't, and I would never do that.
No.
But the other thing that you understand, and so I'm saying you in the general like audience, is that up until a year and a half ago, I never spoke out about my ADHD. I
Mhm.
was still very much in the shadows. So this entire experience in the last 18 months, going from 450 connections to 11,000, going from absolutely no followers to
Mm.
probably 31,000 right now, I still feel like that kid that sat on the bench their entire career and I'm learning how to navigate the attention. And I never want to lose sight of that. And I think that's what we really have in common. Because the second that we lose sight of that, to me, it means that then an ego comes into play. And I
Mhm.
never want to have an ego. Um, I never want to feel like I'm better than anybody because I'm not. We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. It's how do you communicate effectively? One of the things that I love about you, and I brought up Kevin D. Turner before, is you have Kevin in Espresso Plus. And I'm going to be blunt. I'm not trying to start an argument here. It would have been very easy for you to say, no, Kevin, doors closed. I'm the only big dick here. Um,
I've
sorry.
got. Do you know what? I need to write an article about this because a few people have said, if I specialize in LinkedIn, does that mean I can't be a member because there's a conflict of interests? And on the other side of the fence, some people saying, I'm not really a LinkedIn expert. Should I even be here? It's like, well, both camps are welcome. I'm only judging based on have you got a good heart and mind, really. That's all I care. I don't care what you do. You could be a window cleaner. It doesn't make any difference to me in terms of your profession. So yes, you can be a LinkedIn expert or not. Doesn't matter. If you're willing, if you've got an open mindset and an abundance mindset, and you're not going to try and spam everyone, then you're welcome to join. And that means that we have got people whose business is LinkedIn in the group. People like Brenda Meller, who you mentioned earlier, and Rachel Simon, and lots of other good people. So yeah, the 300 is growing nicely. One point I want to make before I forget this is that whether you're running a free group like Dan is 6,100 or a paid group like I am 200 members, and I did have a free group that was 650. It's probably a lot more effort than you think it's going to be. And so for anyone who's watching this thinking, I'm going to start a community, that's my path to beat the algorithm and make my fortune. Great. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And you probably need a lot of social credit in the bank first before you can get to the point where you're going to earn a penny out of this thing. And although my free group transitioned to a pay group relatively quickly, that was off the back of 5 years of near killing myself to build that social equity. So don't think it's an easy route to earning a shed load of money. It isn't.
No, it's really not. You know, you did 5 years. I did roughly a year before that. But it's the trial and error. And there are times where people like you run the group, and there's still times you probably think, oh, I wish I could have done this better. I wish I could have done that better.
Mhm.
It's a constant learning experience.
Yeah.
Um, Now that being said, talking about LinkedIn expertise, I feel like I finally because so I don't think I told you this. So I actually coach Amazonians on
Mhm.
how to use LinkedIn. Like I'm doing a big group training on
Cool.
Wednesday, and theoretically, you could call me an expert. Do I consider myself an expert? No. But there's so much trial and error that goes into it. Like to be successful on this platform, you need to have a fundamental granular understanding. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't know how to create something that goes viral, but let me know if you agree with this. When I see viral posts, which are most often things that tug emotionally,
Mhm. Yeah.
depending on what it is, I would say about 85% of the time, it's a lot of immediate reaction with very little follow through. Ultimately,
Mhm.
you want to see, okay, well, I'm doing this, but then I'm building off of it in order
Mhm.
to take advantage of that. So, do you see an easy route versus a hard route?
I think give me a series of posts over a long period that get in the thousands of views, and I will take that every time over those massive spikes that you get from viral posts. You know that those viral posts they'll sap up a lot of your time in a day responding to hundreds of comments, but they won't actually lead to anything significant. You get people to care about you in the long term, a drip drip effect, not in a single moment, I think.
Yeah,
So just, being congruent and consistent, that's the whole point of my book. That's the thing that gets you to be remembered and noticed, remembered, and preferred. That's the way I always refer to it. So that's what you want to be aiming for, as opposed to thinking, how can we make this thing go viral? That's the wrong aim. You should think about, how can I be most relevant? How can I serve my audience best? That's the thing you want to aim for. And all of my success has come from having more conversations. So that's why I loved when Clubhouse came along, because LinkedIn did not have that facility. And yet every day I could be speaking to people like you and others that we've mentioned. And that was a fantastic way of deepening relationships. It's all about conversations and relationships. The more of those you have, the better results you're going to have in the long term. And so many people that I speak to who aren't getting success yet haven't invested the time to comment on other people's stuff. Send them a direct message that has nothing to do with work. Sometimes just talk to them, see how they're doing, check in on them, um, ask how you can help them. Just be helpful at every point that you can. That's a lot of effort, but that's the route to success for me. It just takes a long time to bear fruit, and so long as you're patient, it will work. But I did never chase virality. That's just
yeah.
that doesn't work for me.
But what you said was really you want to go in with a selfless purpose
Yeah.
in order to cultivate this. But like to prove kind of a point, I remember when you would do the 15-minute rooms on Clubhouse, and they were late night for me, but I enjoyed the people that you surrounded yourself with so much that I would stay up till like 11,
Bless you.
12 o'clock at night to participate for like 15 minutes. And I go to bed
Yeah.
and wake up exhausted. Um, so I want to touch on something because you're one of the few people that I could really speak to about this, and you'll have a fundamental understanding of what I'm speaking about. There's so many idiosyncrasies to LinkedIn algorithm, and anybody that tells you
Mhm.
the LinkedIn algorithm is false is full of it. Um, I don't understand this. So when I will do my posts, I'll use my Tuesday post as an example. If I even deviate by having a link in there, even accidentally, it
Mhm.
destroys everything with the push of the post.
Mm.
So I'm curious, because I think this will be beneficial for those that are listening. Is there a reason why it's so touchy, or is there any way you can make sense of it? The
I think do you know what? In the main, that tends not to happen for most people. anymore. It might be happening for you. I can't say it would never happen. But what seems to have happened in the past couple of years is that LinkedIn introduced this new dwell time metric where they measure how long people spend looking at a post. And they changed the fact that if you click on a link, go off to the page and come back to the post, that is considered as part of the round trip, and it's still you're on that post, and so the dwell time is ticking over and clocking up. In which case, the exposure potential for content that contains links in the main hasn't gone down, but it does go down a little bit on average, and the absolute number of people who click those links is tiny. I did an experiment on this a couple of months ago, and it was like between 1% and 3% of people click on links. So it's like, what's the point? Almost no one is actually going to go and see that content. You might as well not bother putting the link in there. So it's
So
things like that where you need to do the experiments for your own self. Like, just because it doesn't work for me and doesn't seem to work for most people, that doesn't mean that it won't work for you. For me, if I were to post 3 times a day, that probably wouldn't work. That would be too much for me. Yet other people can get millions of views if they do post 3 times a day. The mindset is, I need to test this myself and see what works for me and for my audience. So if you've already done the tests, you know that links don't work in your Job Connection Tuesday posts, fine, don't do them. You already know the
yeah.
answer.
Well, no, I mean, I think what I was thinking about it more along the lines with is if adding a link tells your algorithm that it's a different type of post than a standard text post, and because of that, there's a differential in terms of how it's pushed. So that was really the way that I was objectively thinking about it, because I mean, I was checking when I was going through this. I tried different times. I
Mhm.
tried different formats. The worst I ever did was when I deviated from the simple text. I remember maybe a month or two in, I asked Dominic and Awali, who's a career coach, and I said, can you do like a 30-second video that I could include in my Tuesday post to give people tips?
Mhm.
Which I thought was like a great idea and concept,
Yeah.
but it tanked.
Right.
So, but then the next week when I went back, it shot straight back up.
Mhm.
So people have to be willing to do those tests very often. But you mentioned about getting thousands of views. Like, I'm still shocked because I did my most recent article on this. Um, and I had 4 consecutive posts that did something along the lines of 100,000 views,
Wow.
which is yeah, which shows consistency. And I'm like, I was thinking about it, and there's people that are struggling to get 500 people to view, much less 250, and I'm sitting there. And I remember you weren't there for this, so Judy Fox and I were invited to do this thing on Clubhouse, and um, of course, Judy is a large than life personality, uh, and I start talking about these 4 posts, and Judy goes, holy crap, I didn't realize you were doing that well."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Those are
not in
massive
like not
numbers.
like not in a mean way, but I think it constantly surprises people. And it's because most people are not going to get that much dynamic, and
Not even
that's
close.
fair.
No. No.
Yeah, I'm like,
If you really wanted to test this, the thing to keep in mind is that when you put a link in a post, um, you can either let the link auto generate its preview image, because almost every link will come with metadata that has that generates a preview image. That turns the post into the equivalent of an image post, where you only get a 3-line preview and then this big fat preview image. But if you put the link into the post and then before you post that thing, you delete the image preview that's generated and then post it, then it will be treated as a text post with just happens to have a clickable link in it. Now you could
yeah,
do some tests to compare and contrast how those two categories of link posts do, and maybe that will generate different results. I would think that something that looks like just a text post that happens to have a link in it will much outperform something that has got that big fat image
yeah.
preview thing in it.
Well, you hit it nail on the head. Most of the time, I delete that picture, but there's sometimes that I'm so OCD about getting the post out that if it's like a second before 6 a.m. my time, which is when it
Yeah,
goes out,
yeah.
I lose sight and then I accidentally leave it in, and those are the times. But you're 100% right on that, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that. Now,
And
John,
I think the reason for the difference as well, if there is a difference, is this idea of content density. So a text post occupies a small space in the feed, and therefore LinkedIn can show you more stuff.
yeah,
And an image post occupies a much higher space in the feed, so they can show you less stuff in the same space, and therefore the density of the content they're serving to you is less. So that's possibly the reason why.
that makes sense. So I got, we're rounding up on time.
Okay.
Uh, Not that I mind. It's just like if I don't get this done under an hour, I can't send you the raw copy.
Okay.
But first, post-it notes on the back. We talked about this.
We
Please
did.
explain to everybody what your OCD is about.
Well, I needed something to decorate this blank wall, and so I thought, as I generate members, add members of the Espresso Plus community, I'm going to give them all a color and a number and a name, and just put them on there. So everything that you see behind me is the names of the people in Espresso Plus. And if I were to move my camera, I probably can a little bit, then you're up there near the very, very top. You
Holy
can't quite see
crap.
yourself, but you're on that top row anyway, because you're one of my newest members.
Yes, and I'm very excited to be. And, you know, I had a question about whether I was going to join, not because I didn't want to, but
Mhm.
because my thought process was, how do I join John's group and be somewhat active, but also run my own? Like, where do I find time for this? But ultimately, value is value. And that's where we need to, so I know that there's going to be times where I have questions and there's nobody that's going to be better suited to answer
Mhm.
than John Espirian. So it's a wonderful thing. Now, here's where I kind of want to touch on. You do all this work. I know that you have a private life. What do you do to relax? Because a lot of people will see you and be like, where
He's
do you have
always
time?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Football, proper football, soccer, as you would call it, is probably my real
No,
passion.
I call it
Started.
football.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's my real obsession away from work. And hey, trying to be a good dad and listening to some interesting stuff when I'm out walking in the morning. Sometimes it's about the origin of the universe or something about science fiction. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of time outside of work at the moment because I'm really trying to build this thing. But yeah, if it was one thing, God, I'd love to be a football commentator. That you could throw LinkedIn in the bin if I can if I can go and commentate on football matches around the world. That'd be amazing.
Well, I think you can on TV now because I think we've seen that we now have sitcoms based in the UK. Uh, Ted Lasso,
Yeah,
obviously.
I knew you were
That
going to mention that one.
yeah, that shows that. I'm gonna be honest. I am envious of you for enjoying football. I find it incredibly boring, but that's also because I'm ADHD. My father played it. My wife, that was her sport.
Uh-huh.
Um, there wasn't enough individual activity for me to really, get a
Each
kick
their
out of it.
own, buddy.
So, you know, John, you don't care that I do this. I know that it's not something that you necessarily focused on, but at the same time, for those that are watching that are not in John's community, it is, Espresso Plus.
Mhm.
We'll post the link, in the comments. Lena, if you want to post it there, it would be appreciated. Um, he's only gonna take 100 more members, and it's 29 pounds a month,
Yeah.
which is ironically how much weight I need to lose. So, so,
Nice.
so, so it works.
Nice,
So it
nice.
works out. I think it comes out to
What is
like
that,
30.
$37 something? I can't remember. It's something like that, probably.
I'm a Jewish kid that didn't that did not go into math, so I don't know if I'm
There's
best
somebody in
suited.
that zone anyway. I think what will happen if and when we get to that 300, then things are going to get really interesting because then there'll be a one in, one out system. Then someone's going to have to leave before someone else can join, and that will be
Or
really interesting.
or we could antagonize someone we don't like until they quit. Uh, we
Okay.
we could make them sit with a Spice Girls endless loop. No, a Robbie Williams endless loop. Let's go with that one. I think it's more hard. Um, all right. So final question: which one of your Espresso Plus members most deserves to be in the London Dungeon?
In the London dungeon.
Hmm.
Oh wow! You seriously expect me to answer that? Wow.
No,
None of them.
not
They're all
really, but
amazing.
you know me and how I enjoy catching people off guard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll put you in the dungeon and give you a lifetime supply of chocolate. How's that?
So for those that are watching that don't know the story, I'll make this very, very brief. Um, John's book is called Content DNA. I said to John, I'm like, I'd love to buy the book. Uh, can you autograph it for me? So he sent me to his site. I said, hey, I got this kind of unique request. I said, Cadbury chocolate is my absolute favorite, but the Cadbury in America is crap. Can you send me a bar of Cadbury? So John like thinks about this. Okay, fine. It's weird, but fine. He goes to send it. A month later, still haven't received it. A second month later, still haven't received it. A month after that, I sent John a message. I'm like, I got a package. Well, the package was torn open. The book was in there, but no chocolate.
Disgraceful.
So, so we're on this bit of a witch hunt to figure out who stole my Cadbury chocolate, and in the meantime, I still have to deal with shitty American. But it will always be better than Hershey's, which is just cardboard.
Yeah.
Um,
Somewhere in America, there is a mailman who's been educated on content marketing and has diabetes or something because he
yeah, I
stole your
mean,
chocolate.
yeah, just totally on chocolate. But seriously, Cadbury was great until Nestle took over. Um, this has been fun. I could go on for another 2 or 3 hours. This is the first off day I've actually had since I started at Amazon,
Wow.
and this is the perfect way to start it. Yeah, my parents are in town for my dad's 75th birthday on Monday, so um, Sunday we're off to the flower fields. Monday we're going to SeaWorld. Pretty sure neither one is what he wanted to do, but that's what my mom is here for. Anyway, John, I appreciate you being on. This will not be our last time. Make sure you're checking out Espresso Plus, and we will touch base next time. Ted Lasso it up. Any last words?
No, I'm really, really pleased that we finally got a chance to do this and happy to come back anytime. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, this was fun and it was different than we normally get to do. So I'm going to end with this.